Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We just wanted to give it a few minutes to allow everybody to attend. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I know all of our attendees today are working in the education sector and it's September 16th of 2020. You're extremely busy and that is not lost on this group today. As a parent who sent my own 2 kids back to school just days ago, thank you very sincerely for the work that you're doing live time, past, present, future, to deliver a quality education program and a safe education environment today. And so again, we appreciate your time and we hope to take just under 60 minutes. We probably give you a bit of time back in your day to deliver some content that is valuable and directly pointed at some of the challenges you're faced with today and in this school year as it relates to enhancing student engagement in virtual and hybrid learning environments. And so my own introduction, my name is Jen Schrock and I've been working with the CDW organization and our wonderful education customers for many years. In just a moment, I'm going to hand it over to our brilliant presenters, but as today's moderator, I just wanted to share with you a couple of quick housekeeping items. All of your lines have been muted during the presentation. However, we do want to make it interactive, so please feel free to submit questions through the comments box, and I will be sure, the Q&A box, and I will be sure to that we address them throughout the presentation. So there is no need to hold your questions until the end. Today's session is being recorded, so we can share it with interested customers who are unable to attend today. We'll share that link and other information following the presentation. So we have 3 presenters for you today. I'm sharing with you on the screen here their profiles. We're very thrilled to have Alistair McLeod join the CDW organization in August as our first Canada-based education strategist. Alistair has over 30 years of experience in education, from educator to technology-enabled learning specialist to manager of information technology with the Limestone District School Board here in Ontario, among other experiences and accolades. His chief goal as part of the CDW team now is to better support our education customers as a value-add resource through this immediate challenging period and into the future, as we know technology will continue to shape education delivery and engagement models. Next, Daniel Beckus, as classroom software expert, will speak to and demo the Lenovo LAN School solution and how its tools can address student engagement, evaluation, and safety in a virtual or hybrid classroom. And then finally, we have Thomas Bryant, Lenovo Smart Office expert, will speak to and demo the Lenovo ThinkView Smart as a cost-effective way for classrooms to offer a video experience, allowing students at home to more clearly see instructions while also freeing up the educator device for other use. And a couple final panelist call-outs we have with us on the line as well, and for the discussion, Matt Deneau, who I think many of you know, Lenovo Ontario K-12 account executive, and Eric Taylor, Lenovo Senior Technical Client Advisor for Smart Collaboration Solutions. So again, both Matt and Eric join us today to support the open discussion and Q&A, and we do encourage you to submit those, and we'll have some great dialogue. So without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Alistair McLeod to open for us.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I just wanted to start by echoing Jen's thanks to all of you for attending. I know from experience that school year startup is extremely busy time of the year, and I can only imagine how much busier it is this particular school year as school districts try to get asynchronous and synchronous learning going with some students and still operate full schools and buildings at the same time. So at CDW and Lenovo, our joint goal is to increase our own awareness of challenges that face educators and educational institutions, especially at this time of unprecedented change, and to work with our customers to find and share possible solutions that help to address those challenges. So today we're going to focus on two specific challenges as jurisdictions work to implement engaging synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities for their students. So the first challenge that we want to address is in remote learning environments, both synchronous and asynchronous. How can educators monitor and promote student engagement? How do they create a safe learning environment, especially with younger students? And how do they conduct fair and transparent assessments to promote and evaluate student learning? And then in live environments where social distancing requires that students must be separated so that not all of the students are in the same room as the educator, how do we support the engagement of the students in the remote location? So that's our first challenge. And one possible solution to that challenge is Lenovo's LAN School and LAN School Air product. They work with Chromebooks, which I know a lot of educational institutions use and have provided to students who are learning remotely, as well as Windows and Mac devices. The Lenovo LAN School product allows the educator to monitor and protect learners during synchronous learning sessions. With LAN School Air, educators can limit what websites students can access. They can view all activity on each student's device at a glance, blank screens to focus student attention when needed, and even push out a specific website to the devices of all remote learners at once. And then there's the deployment of LAN School Air, which is rapid and simple to do. So Dan's going to be presenting the LAN School and LAN School Air solution and showing you what that looks like to address that challenge. The second challenge that we're going to talk about today is in synchronous learning sessions, especially those where there's concurrently students in the classroom interacting with each other and the instructor, and students attending remotely. How does the student remain connected to the classroom to see and hear clearly what is happening? And how does the educator remain connected to both groups of students simultaneously with minimal complexity? We've heard from other school districts and jurisdictions who've been looking for ways to find a way for students to be able to connect to a live classroom environment by video. One school board that we worked with in Ontario here, the Halton Catholic District School Board, evaluated a number of devices against a whole set of criteria. And they tested webcams, camcorders on tripods, and in the end, they settled on Lenovo's ThinkSmart View, which ties seamlessly into their Microsoft Teams platform. The ThinkSmart View was the clear winner for a number of reasons, and they include the device is extremely simple to use for the educator and easy to share amongst classrooms or amongst educators. The audio and video clarity was better than the alternatives they found in their tests, and they even tested with certain heights of teacher writing on a whiteboard to see which would be most clearly visible to students. The device also stands alone. It doesn't need to be attached to the instructor's device, so it doesn't tie up the instructor's own device in the classroom, and you don't have cords and things lying down in between the ThinkSmart View and the teacher device. It's also easy to move the device around within a classroom to different locations, and there is an option to connect a Bluetooth headset to it in noisy environments or where there's a need to accommodate for educator or student accessibility. And then the other advantage of that particular device is in the post-COVID environment, when that device is no longer required for the remote students, there's a place for the devices to be used to host team meetings, for small groups, for administrators to attend remote meetings, or even school trustees or others who need to attend Teams meetings remotely. So in short, it's a good long-term investment as well as a short-term solution to that particular challenge. So let's take a look at exactly how these solutions would work. Dan is going to start by taking us through the LAN School Air solution, and then Thomas will demonstrate the ThinkSmart View. Sorry. So Dan, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alistair. I appreciate that and appreciate the intro. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to real quickly share out my desktop here so that basically we can kind of take a look at LAN School Air right off the bat for us. So one of the things I just want to kind of mention to our audience is that LAN School has been in the business of basically for the last 30 years. We started out monitoring computer labs and devices within computer labs. So way back in the day when, the only computers that you had were sitting basically in those individual rooms, that's when LAN School started up their system. And what we've been doing for the past 30 years is kind of building on that a little bit. So we have basically two versions of LAN School. One is LAN School Classic, which is really built and kind of focused on those students when they're going to be within the same LAN. So when they're going to stay on campus, and that's kind of the focus area of where your students are going to be at. And that's a feature-rich tool that we have that has basically 60 different features and functionalities that kind of tie into that. And then on the flip side of that, something that we've been developing over the last 6-7 years has been our LAN School Air product. Now, our LAN School Air product is basically set up so that it's able to monitor and engage with students no matter where they're at. So they could be in the classroom, they could be remote at home. Their location doesn't really matter as long as they have access to internet connection. And so what we've seen, especially during the last year, has been basically a huge uptick in the number of boards and districts that are moving over into that LAN School airspace. So, when we look at it moving forward, in most cases, what we see is a lot of the boards are moving into LAN School Air simply because for a couple of different reasons. One, the interface that we'll get into in a little bit is a clean, easy to use interface that teachers basically can log in through a website to be able to access it. The devices, whether it's a Mac device, a Windows device, or a Chromebook, basically we can push out an application that lives on those devices and then ties in with the student information system and pre-populate some of those teacher classes for us. So basically with that LAN School Air hosted solution, we tried to make it kind of as clean and easy for the teachers and just as clean and easy for the IT side. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. As we move through, basically, please feel free to type any messages into the chat there for us or into the question area, and somebody will interrupt me, and then we can get in there. Because I'm going to be so focused on this demonstration, I'm not going to even have a chance to even look at those questions on the side. All right. So as we move in, let's take a look at this. First off, when we log into LAN School Air, one of the key things I want to mention is if you're using Google Classroom at this point in time, we basically sync right up with Google Classroom. So the nice thing about that is that your teacher logins, if you're using Gmail accounts, basically those we can sync up with, so you don't have to worry about password management. And also, if you already have classes that are syncing up and built within Google Classroom, those will automatically come in over into LAN School Air. So for example, I'm just going to go in and log in as I normally would with my Google login as a teacher would. This is exactly the same as what a teacher is going to see when they come in. It's going to pop up a window, and basically any of those classes that were in Google Classroom, as I mentioned, are going to sync over. For a teacher to start a class, all they need to do is click on the class at that point in time, and then they're just going to choose Start Class. So what they'll see is the rostering from those students will basically come over. And what will happen is, as you can see, those students that basically are the students that basically have been put into the roster are going to be able to pop in and show that in there. Now, and some of those students, if they hadn't logged in, they'll show up as basically being offline. I'm just going to go ahead and refresh my window here. Always fun with the live demo setups. Okay. And then basically now what we'd see is, there we go, my students are basically coming online and they're popping up and becoming active as I've logged in and seeing those. So now I can see that I do have one student who basically is over here as I pop in, basically seeing them as they're basically in Fortnite at this point in time, browsing the web. I have another student who may not have logged in yet at this point in time, and so basically they're just showing as being offline. What I can do is I can just drag that student down off my screen and drag up my other students that are online and available. And so now when we go in this as a teacher, basically there's nothing that I need to do as a teacher when they first kick off that system. That's going to be kind of handled on the IT side. And just as a quick little aside from the IT, when we look at it, basically what you're going to do is for a Chromebook, you would basically put an extension in the OU for the Chromebooks within Google Classroom, and that would basically push that out to the Chromebooks. Whatever Chromebook that student logs into is where that basically is going to pop up for the student within the class when the teacher starts the class. And for Windows or Mac devices, basically there's an application, an MSI package, say that you would push out for the Windows devices, and then we would tie that Windows device to the student login. So when they show up, they're going to be visible within the class. So that's kind of a quick technical background. Now, when we go in, some of the basic features that we had, I kind of already showed some of the basic stuff of being able to move students around if you have ones and offline, or if you'd like to create groups. In some cases, I know some boards basically are in a scenario where they are students may be in the classroom live, and then another chunk of the students may be home and remote. And in some cases, the teachers are dealing with them at the same time. So in some ways, this is where the groups and teams and breaking up that would kind of come into play, because you could put your local students into one section of the screen for you and your remote students into another, make it a little bit easier to monitor. Now, when I see this student here, for example, that has basically they're watching Fortnite instead of paying attention to me and my presentation, there's a couple different things I can do. One, I can drop in here into list view. And then when I go into look at Isaac's screen here, I see that he basically has Fortnite up and running. And what I can simply do is I can go in and I can close that tab. And then when I close that tab, what happens is that window shuts down. And now I'm back, and he is basically no longer, that tab is no longer available for him, or basically that window is no longer set. Now, one of the things that I can do is I can also see the whole desktop for Isaac if I choose to. And what that gives me the capability to see then is even when my window, even when my student basically is not, doesn't have anything open on their screen, is not in a Chrome, basically in a browser window, I'm still able to see their desktop. So they're not able to hide things back behind me if I'd like. Now, when we go forward, let's go into a couple things where teachers usually start to use this as they start the class. So one of the ways that we can use this, a neat little feature, is this push website concept. So what teachers can do is, especially if they're using remote and they have, say, Zoom or Google Meets, whatever it is that they're using, what they can do is they can open up and push a website to all the students within their class. So for example, they could copy that Zoom's meeting link, basically paste that into this, and then be able to push it out to all their students. So all their students would join basically they know all the students are going to be able to join into that meetings and hear the voice and the audio. So for us, I'm just going to say another example would be as if I wanted to use this to get all of my students basically onto a page that I'm going to be working on today for class. So let's say our class today is going to be space, right? So I want to send all my students to the Canadian Space Agency. So I put in that website, I go ahead and I push that. And what you're going to see is if my if my link was working correctly, what you would see is basically I'm going to go to the Canadian website. And of course, it's not, I must have typed in the wrong link. But the other thing that I can do, let me try this. Oh, shoot. Sorry. There we go. There we go. Now we're moving in the right direction. It helps if you get the right web page. So basically now what we're seeing is it's loading, it's going ahead and it's loading the Canadian Space Agency web page. So my students now are going to be all focused on one spot. Now, one of the things that I could do is if at this point in time when I've loaded this and all my students are on the same spot, another thing that I can do is I could say, hey, you know what? I want to get all the kids' attention. I want them to listen to my voice as I step through what I'm going to want them to do for the rest of the day. So what I can do is I can do something called blank all screens. Now, when I blank all screens, what happens is the students are no longer able to do anything on their device at all. And basically, they're going to have to listen to, well, I'm hoping that they're listening to what I'm saying at that point in time. So what I would do then is I could run through and say, hey, you know what, we're going to spend the next 90 minutes going through working on our project for space. I've sent you to the Canadian Space Agency. You can do some research in that area. I'm also going to allow you to go to a couple other web pages, say SpaceX and NASA if you'd like to go. And what you're going to look at for these 3 topics, right? So I could go through my curriculum at that point in time. I know that the students are basically listening to me at this point. Now, when I go back and I unblank all screens, you can kind of see, if you look here real quick, basically I can customize this image to be whatever I'd like. I can have it say a certain type of text. I can have it be just an image pop up, whatever the case may be in that scenario. Now, when I go back, basically the students now have the capability to go to any place that they would like. One of the things that I can then kind of tie this in a little bit more, if I say, hey, you know what, I want the students to basically only be able to go to the 3 places that I mentioned, basically NASA, SpaceX, and the Canadian Space Agency, then at that point, what I have the capability to do is I can create a web limiting list. Now, the cool thing about this is that this is a list that the teacher can create ahead of time. As you can see, I have a bunch of different things that are set up on my list already. And simply by flicking on and off, I can allow or disallow students to go to these different locations. So when I look at web limiting, right now I'm looking at, hey, I'm going to allow only specified websites that I say. So I'm just going to flip on the ones that are basically just for this section or just for this class and turn those on. Then at that point, once I have those turned on, I can just go ahead and save and close this. Now, if I have a student who says, hey, you know what, I would rather be going to I would rather be going to Fortnite instead of the Canadian Space Agency, right? Then at that point, let me just slide over here and I'm going to basically type in Fortnite for this. Okay, so as that student goes to Fortnite, now if I say as a teacher, I'm going to lock that down, I'm going to choose limit websites for all. Now, when I choose that limit websites for all, what you're going to see is basically on this screen, it's going to pop up this window that basically says, hey, the website that you're looking for, student, is currently blocked. And it's going to only show, it's not going to let them go anywhere else except for these 3 domains that I've said that they're allowed to. Now, all the student has to do is basically click on one of those domains. And then what it'll do is it'll take them into that location. So it's a way for the instructor to basically, and the teacher to be able to control a little bit more detailed than what you do with web filtering about where the students are going to go during their class. So it basically just gives that instructor a little bit more opportunity to guide the student in the direction that they feel like would be best during their session. So that's with the websites. Now, if I get done with my class, I turn this off, unlimit websites for all. Now, at this point in time, that student can go back. And if they want, now at this point, they can go to Fortnite or wherever they would like to go, go see what's going on with, whatever they want to at this point in time. So basically it opens it wide open for them. All right, so that's kind of the real quick high level feature functionality that we have within LAN School Air. One of the other things that we do have available for us is basically the show teacher option. The show teacher option allows you to share a screen with the students and basically locks the students in so that they have to basically watch the screen that the teacher is sharing. So it gives you a little bit more control than what you have during a Zoom meeting and things like that. That basically is available at this point in time for all of our for all the LAN School people who would like to do a trial or basically are moving forward with LAN School Air. And then finally, the other aspect of it is our audio. So that's on the roadmap for us, a very interesting aspect that's on the roadmap. And when I say it's on the roadmap, it's on the roadmap for the next few months. Basically, we're expecting within the next couple of months, we're going to have the option to do audio through LAN School also. So we are going to get to the point where basically, potentially you will not need a Zoom or Meets meeting to be able to run your class. All that audio and video will be able to run right through LAN School. So that being said, I know I went through everything relatively quickly. I will browse quickly if there's any messages in chat, or if anybody saw anything that pops up, I'm happy to answer them at this point.
Okay, Dan, as of right now, we don't have any questions submitted through the Q&A.
All right. Perfect. I was so clear and concise that nobody even had a question. Fantastic. Right. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll stop sharing at this point in time, and then we can jump back. And if anything comes up at the end, I'm happy to jump back on.
All right, cool. So it's my turn, huh? So my name is Thomas Bryant. As mentioned earlier, I'm focused on our smart devices, right? So today we're here to talk about the ThinkSmart View, this device here. This was brought to market before COVID. Anyone knew that was going to happen, right? It was already set in stone. The idea behind it is kind of like think video desk phone meets smart assistant. We found in COVID, though, there's a lot of other applications where this form factor makes sense. For example, healthcare and virtual rounding. And most recently, we've seen some K-12 districts adopt this to be able to run their virtual classroom, synchronous learning, right? Provide the audio video feed for students who are remote or away on their laptop. So I got a couple slides I'll show you, but really I think it's fairly straightforward. We'll take some look at some stuff. So again, this device here, in the most recent situation where we saw a school district adopt it, their hunt actually started as a look for webcams, right? So they're looking for webcam options, and the Lenovo rep mentioned this as a device to consider. And as Alistair alluded, they tested a lot of different things, and they found, surprisingly, this device actually worked really well. So the ThinkSmart View is a purpose-built device for Microsoft Teams, right? So it's a fairly small form factor here. It's about 1 kilogram, so it's lightweight. And there's a single cable that comes out of it. Right? So you have a power jack, that's it. Everything else will be done over Wi-Fi, and you'll log into the Microsoft Teams application. All right, so here are your high points. Here's the reason this fits well in the classroom environment. First and foremost, it's simple. Well, if you guys are using Microsoft Teams, you'll get your one-touch join option. So if a teacher has scheduled a Teams meeting for the class, on the home screen of their ThinkSmart View when they log into it with their individual credentials, they will get the option to join right into that meeting, right? They can also view their calendar and some other things on there as well. But it's very simple, very straightforward. And it's standalone, so you can use it in conjunction with a PC, but you don't have to, which is nice, right? So say if you're using something like LAN School, if you have a device like the ThinkSmart View to broadcast your audio video of the whiteboard and the teacher at the front of the room, then their personal PC is available there for them to use LAN School or to present content or things if they need as well through the meeting, but it's not tied up running Teams, and they're not using an integrated webcam or something like that, right? It's nice, simple solution. It's easy to move around. So if for some reason if you wanted to share them between classrooms or things like that, it's not a problem to move. They're not heavy. You just have the power cable is the only thing attached to it. So if the teacher wants to, show a different angle of the room or something like that, they can very easily move it. These guys are simple to deploy. It's all done through Microsoft Teams. There's nothing else going on here, right? There's an Android OS underneath the covers. It boots right into the Teams application. They'll log in with their credentials, and they'll be up and running in terms of right into being able to view their Teams calendar, their meetings, on all that sort of stuff, right? It's got great audio video quality, which I was going to showcase to you personally firsthand. However, the ability to join live events from the View is in the next update coming out in like 2 weeks, right? So if there is interest that you have in this device, I would encourage you, let's set up a meeting and I can showcase firsthand what the audio video like is for you. I think you'll be surprised at the quality, right? So certainly HD audio. It has built-in far-field microphones. So when we were testing it prior to this call, I was in the corner of my office, which is a little over 8 feet away, and they could hear me very clearly. Right? So if this device was in front of your whiteboard, and the teacher's somewhere between the device and the whiteboard. The built-in microphones can probably pick up their what they're talking about with their audio very effectively. You do have the option to pair a Bluetooth device with it, right? So if you want a headset, so if you found you had teachers that say when they turn around and face the whiteboard or something, it's hard for people online to hear them, you could simply pair a Bluetooth headset of your choice with it and use that for the audio so that you can clearly hear the instructor. There's also a nice physical on-off switch for the camera and for the audio. So say if the teacher needed to do something in front of the device, they could flip that shutter up, cut the audio or the video feed so that they can interact face to face with the device without their face being what people are seeing on the video feed. Same with the microphone, you can physically cut it on and off. You also have the option to mute it, turn off your camera through the Teams app as well, but it gives you kind of a nice, it's off feeling when you flip that switch. From a management perspective, this device is managed through the Teams admin console. And if you have additional layer securities and things, you can use Microsoft's Intune. But in terms of setting up firmware updates and all that sort of stuff, you would do it through the Teams admin console. If you have, say, a one-time password or the authentication methods like that, you can set those things through Intune, network security certificates, that sort of stuff. This is also a very affordable device. So from a list price standpoint, $470 Canadian is the list price there. And probably best of all, if you find yourself needing a device sooner rather than later, they're readily available. Webcams right now are incredibly hard to get a hold of, particularly in volume, whereas this guy is readily available. This tech specs for you. These are the slides that we can provide you as a reference. At the end of the day, really, like I said, it's purpose-built Microsoft Teams. In the scenario we're proposing here, it would really be your audio-video device for the classroom in a very simple, straightforward setup. The other nice thing about these devices later on is once everybody's back in school and we're done with this COVID thing, you could repurpose them and send them maybe more into an administrative role or let teachers have them to serve more as the personal assistant device rather than the broadcast device. So I think there is a longer lifespan for them beyond just the short term, we need audio video in the classroom. So we can take a quick look here, but I just threw a ton of stuff at you really quickly. Do you have questions about this device, what it can and cannot do?
Right now, Thomas, I'm not receiving any questions. I'm going to try to make an announcement through the Q&A just to make sure that everyone is comfortable with where to submit questions.
Okay, cool. So can you guys see Eric Taylor's screen here? He's our technical guy too. So if you got questions about deployment, Intune, and that sort of thing, let us know. We have technical resources as well. But Eric is showing you what the interface looks like here on the view. So it's your home page. So again, you would log in. So the teacher would log into this device with the same credentials they were using on their PC. All right, you can use them simultaneously. And the same calendar will populate. They'll get the same ability to have that one-touch join option into their classroom meeting. You can see chat and activity and things like that as well. You do have the ability now to access OneDrive. So if they wanted to pull up a document from their OneDrive on this device, they can do that as well, which is nice. And you can kind of, if you want to move between your PC and this device. But again, in this scenario, I think the most straightforward way to use this is you'd set it towards the front of the classroom, right? The teacher has their own credentials, they're able to join right into a meeting, and that device then provides your audio video feed for the class. Our most recent adopter has found that around 8 feet away, it perfectly framed their 4x8 whiteboard, and they were able to read the handwriting on the board clearly as well. So it gave them a nice, easy solution. You don't have additional cables. You don't have to worry about pairing it with a PC, right? It can be a standalone device.
Thomas, it's Alistair jumping in here. Can you turn your monitor on behind you there just to show that eye chart we were playing with? When we were talking about this device and how it might be used in the classroom, we were interested to see, how clear would it be from a student attending remotely, looking at a whiteboard. And the test that they did at Home Catholic, they determined that a 2-inch tall letter was very easy to read on a whiteboard at a distance of about 6 to 8 feet, which, according to that eye chart, where would that be approximately on the eye chart there, Thomas?
Like this guy here, in between these two. And the camera here is a little over 8 feet away. But again, we'd be more than happy to demo this for you in a more one-on-one setting if you'd like. In a normal Teams call, it'd be very easy for me to use the view. You can walk around, that sort of thing as well.
To that point, Thomas, we had discussion prior to this webinar that you can't join Teams live events from a Think Smart View. General availability on Teams display that you're seeing here, that will be available.
Which we expect to come out in a couple
Thomas, we do. Okay, awesome. We do have a question here. Is there a method or system to centrally manage these devices? Not sure what OS is on there.
So Eric, help me here. I mean, so the operating system is a lockdown version of Android. All your firmware updates and things will be pushed through the Teams admin console, right?
That is correct. The device authenticates through Intune, which you would set up to allow the Android device to get into your environment, and then general administration of the device is done through the Teams admin console in Office 365.
Kevin, that question was from you. Does that answer your question, or do you want to hop on to audio to ask further questions of the team?
I'm not sure if, because it's a live event, if you can unmute.
Okay, yes, I see it. Kevin has said
his
excellent.
Response is excellent. So, question answered. So we'll just kind of take 30 seconds here maybe to see if there's any other questions that come through from the audience. Otherwise, Matt, I'm going to throw it over to you for any final commentary.
Yeah, great. Can you guys hear me?
Before we close it out.
I'm seeing some nods. Just interrupt me if anything else comes in from our attendees, but wanted to thank everyone for joining. Thank you, Jen and Mackenzie and team for assembling all the technical aspects of this, and my extended Lenovo team for presenting. I just wanted to also mention for Ontario boards, everything that you've seen here is already available via the OECM agreement on which Lenovo and CDW partner. So simply reach out to myself or your your CDW account manager. If you had any further questions, obviously we have I have direct access to Thomas, Dan, and Eric. But if you had any other questions, or if you wanted to set something up for further demonstration, we can make that available. But thanks again, everyone, for attending. Appreciate your time.